In 2011, a judge ordered a man to sell everything that proved he mattered. 3 Super Bowl rings. Gone. Auctioned off inside a Los Angeles auction house to pay his debts. The man sitting in that courtroom had won those rings with the Oakland Raiders. He had played in 3 Super Bowls. He had been named to 7 Pro Bowls. He had been selected to the NFL's 75th anniversary team. The college football award for the best punter in the entire country was named after him. And yet there he sat, bankrupt, ordered by a judge to sell the only things left that proved he was ever great. His name was Ray Guy, and by the end of this video, you are going to understand something that most football fans have never been told. You are going to understand why one man, at one specific position, was worth more to the Oakland Raiders than most quarterbacks in the entire NFL. But that story starts long before the auction house. It starts with a decision that the entire football world said was insane. April 1973, NFL Draft. The Oakland Raiders are on the clock with the 23rd overall pick. 22 players have already been selected: running backs, quarterbacks, defensive linemen, men whose names would go on to fill Hall of Fame ballots and championship rosters. And then Al Davis makes his pick. The room goes quiet. People look at each other. Some of them laugh. Because the Oakland Raiders have just used a first-round draft pick on a punter. Not a quarterback, not a cornerback, a punter. In the entire history of the NFL draft before that moment, no team had ever done this. Not once. No franchise had ever looked at a punter and said, "This man is worth a first-round selection. This man is worth passing up defensive ends, linebackers, and skill players to have on our team." Every scout in that room, every general manager, every coach watching from home, they all had the same reaction. Al Davis had lost his mind. But here's the question you need to sit with right now. What if Al Davis hadn't lost his mind at all? What if he saw something in Ray Guy that took the rest of the football world another 4 decades to figure out? Because the answer to that question changes everything you thought you knew about what wins football games. Before we explain what Al Davis saw, we need to understand who Ray Guy actually was. Because this is where the story gets genuinely strange. Ray Guy grew up in Thompson, Georgia. He was a 4-sport star in high school: football, basketball, baseball, track. In football alone, he played quarterback, safety, linebacker, and tailback. Not special teams. He played the actual positions of football. He led his high school to back-to-back Georgia Class A state championships in 1967 and 1968. Then he got to the University of Southern Mississippi. And the coaches had a problem. Ray Guy could do everything. He played safety on defense and intercepted 8 passes in his senior season alone, a single-season school record. He kicked field goals. In a snowstorm, in a game at Utah State, he drilled a 61-yard field goal that at that moment set an NCAA record. As a pitcher on the baseball team, he struck out 266 batters in 200 innings. He threw a no-hitter. Major League Baseball drafted him multiple times while he was still in high school. And then there was the punting. Ray Guy punted a football 93 yards in a game against Ole Miss. 93 yards from a punt. In his senior season, he led the entire nation in punting average. His career punting average of 44.7 yards per kick is still a Southern Miss school record. So the question isn't why Al Davis drafted him in the first round. The question is why nobody had thought of it sooner. But what happened when Ray Guy arrived in Oakland is the part nobody ever tells you. Summer of 1973. Raiders training camp. Ray Guy jogs onto the practice field for the first time. He's done what he always does. Played multiple positions in college, played safety, covered kicks, done everything. He looks over. He sees the defensive players warming up, and he runs straight toward them. John Madden sees this from across the field. The same John Madden who just told every skeptic in the league that drafting Ray Guy in the first round was the right decision. The same John Madden who staked his credibility on this pick. He goes absolutely furious. Because Ray Guy cannot get injured. Ray Guy cannot be just another defensive back who might take a helmet to the knee on a crossing route. Ray Guy is the most important player on the Oakland Raiders special teams unit, and Madden needs him in one piece. He told him to punt and only punt. But here is what Madden told reporters years later about what he learned that day. He said Ray Guy threw harder than Ken Stabler, the starting quarterback of the Oakland Raiders. Ken Stabler, the Snake. The man who would go on to win a Super Bowl, make 4 Pro Bowls, and get inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Ray Guy threw harder than him. Madden said, "There is no question he was a real football player. I just didn't let him play. He was too valuable as a punter." Too valuable as a punter. Think about that for a second, because you're about to find out exactly what that value looked like on an NFL field, and why it terrified every defense in the conference. There is a thing in football that most casual fans don't think about. Field position. Where a drive starts matters enormously. If an offense starts a drive on their own 15-yard line, they need to travel 85 yards to score. If they start on their own 40, they need 60 yards. That 25-yard difference is enormous. It changes what plays you can call. It changes the pressure on your quarterback. It changes the entire complexion of a drive. Ray Guy understood this better than any punter who had ever lived, and he weaponized it. Hall of Fame cornerback Willie Brown played next to Ray Guy on those Raiders teams. Years later, he said this: "Having Ray Guy meant having a chance to make the playoffs and win the Super Bowl. He kept opposing offensive teams back in the hole a majority of the time. As a defense, you have a shot anytime he's in the game punting." From a punter. But here is the specific number that makes you understand how completely Ray Guy dominated his position and how impossible it was to take it away from him. He punted 1,049 times in his career. Only 3 of those punts were blocked. 3 out of 1,049. From 1979 until the final game of his career in 1986, he punted 619 consecutive times without a single block. Not one. Defensive coordinators game-planned every week against Ken Stabler. They game-planned against Cliff Branch and Fred Biletnikoff. They sent their best pass rushers after the Raiders' offensive line. And nobody could figure out how to block Ray Guy. But there was one moment, one single play, that made the entire country understand what Ray Guy actually was. And it didn't happen in a regular season game. It didn't happen in a playoff game. It happened at the Pro Bowl, in front of a television audience, in a domed stadium in New Orleans. And it involved a scoreboard 90 feet above the field. January 1976. The Pro Bowl, Louisiana Superdome. Ray Guy is warming up before the game. He looks up and notices the scoreboard gondola hanging inside the dome. It's 90 feet off the ground, an absurd height. Nobody has ever come close to hitting it with a football. During warm-ups, Ray Guy punts a ball. It hits the gondola. He does it again. It hits again. He tells the ABC television announcing crew before the game that he is going to hit it during the game itself. They don't quite believe him, but they keep the cameras on him every time he walks out to punt. Third quarter. Guy gets the snap. He takes a step and swings his right leg. The ball rockets upward, climbing and climbing, hanging in the air with impossible height, traveling 90 feet to the ceiling of the Louisiana Superdome. It strikes the gondola. The crowd erupts. The announcing crew loses their minds. Ray Guy later told the Oakland Tribune, "To this day, that's the thing I get asked about most. More than the Super Bowls, more than the Pro Bowls, more than anything I did in football. People want to talk about the time I hit the scoreboard at the Superdome." The Superdome eventually raised that gondola an extra 50 feet just in case Ray Guy ever tried it again. That single moment gave football a word it didn't have before. Hang time. The idea that a punt could stay in the air so long, so impossibly high, that by the time a returner caught it, the coverage team was already standing right next to him. Ray Guy didn't invent hanging the ball in the air, but he made it so extreme, so consistent, so completely beyond anything defenders had seen, that the football world had to create a phrase to describe what he was doing. And what he was doing was winning football games. Which brings us to the part of this story that nobody fully connects. From 1973 to 1978, Ray Guy was selected to 6 consecutive Pro Bowls. 6 straight years, every season, named as the best punter in professional football every year for 6 consecutive years. He led the NFL in punting average in 1974, 1975, and 1977. The Pittsburgh Steelers were the dominant force in the AFC during this era. Chuck Noll was their head coach. By 1977, Noll had publicly stated that Ray Guy was the best punter in the National Football League. The head coach of your biggest rival, telling the world your punter is the best at what he does. During those same years, the Oakland Raiders were building a dynasty. They made the postseason consistently. They were a team that AFC opponents genuinely feared. And in 1976, they won it all. Super Bowl 11. Raiders over the Minnesota Vikings. Then Super Bowl 15 in 1981. Raiders again. Then Super Bowl D18 in 1984. Raiders again. 3 Super Bowls. 3 championships. 3 times the silver and black stood on top of professional football. Ray Guy was on every single team. But here is the moment from those Super Bowls that defines who Ray Guy was under pressure, and it's the moment that most people have never seen. Super Bowl 28, January 1984. Los Angeles Raiders versus the Washington Redskins. The snap comes back to Ray Guy. High, way too high, floating above his head. A disaster snap in a Super Bowl. A lesser punter panics. A lesser punter fumbles. The Redskins recover, score from close range, and the Super Bowl changes completely. Ray Guy leaps. One hand. He snatches that football out of the air with a single hand while in midair. Lands, sets, punts the ball almost 60 yards downfield. No turnover, no score, no momentum shift. The Raiders won that Super Bowl, 38-9. 5 of Guy's 7 punts in that game pinned Washington inside their own 20-yard line. 5 times, in a Super Bowl. The Redskins' offense spent most of that game starting drives with their backs against the wall, traveling 90 yards to try to score against one of the league's best defenses. Pro Football Hall of Fame historian Joe Horrigan said of Ray Guy, "He's the first punter you could look at and say he won games." Won games. Not contributed to wins, not helped. Won games. And Madden understood this so completely that he once told his own quarterback, "If it gets to 3rd down, just throw the ball away. The worst thing we have to do is let Ray Guy kick it, and that's pretty good." The head coach of the Oakland Raiders was telling his quarterback that punting was a good outcome on 3rd down, because his punter changed the game that much. But here's the part of this story that hurts. The Hall of Fame doors stayed closed for Ray Guy for over 2 decades after he retired. He played his final game in 1986, his last season. 14 years in the silver and black. 14 years of 619 consecutive punts without a block. Of hitting scoreboards 90 feet above NFL fields. Of pinning opponents at the goal line in Super Bowls. He retired. He waited. The voting happened every year. His name came up. And every year the voters found a reason to pass him by. Quarterbacks went in, running backs went in, receivers went in, coaches went in. Ray Guy waited. And while he waited, the financial reality of a retired NFL player from that era caught up with him. He filed for bankruptcy in 2011. A judge ordered him to sell his 3 Super Bowl rings. The rings from Super Bowls 11, 15, and XVI, the rings that represented 3 championships. The physical proof of everything he had built as an Oakland Raider. They sold for $96,000 at auction. $96,000 for 3 Super Bowl rings from a man who spent 14 seasons as the most dominant player in the history of his position. He couldn't speak publicly about it without his voice going quiet. When reporters asked, he said simply, "I don't want to talk about it. Sometimes you've got to do what you've got to do." And he waited for the Hall of Fame call that had been coming for 23 years. 2014, February 1st. The call finally came. Ray Guy was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The first punter, the only punter. 41 years after Al Davis made the decision that the entire football world laughed at, the Pro Football Hall of Fame confirmed what Al Davis had known in 1973. Ray Guy was one of the greatest players in the history of the sport. The enshrinement ceremony was August 2, 2014. John Madden was there. The man who had coached Guy for years, who had seen him try to run with the defensive backs in training camp, who had watched him throw a football harder than his starting quarterback, was there to put that golden Hall of Fame jacket on Ray Guy's shoulders. When Guy finally stood at the podium in Canton, Ohio, in front of the crowd, he said 7 words. "Now the Hall of Fame has a complete team." 7 words. After 23 years of waiting. After auctioning his rings. After being told implicitly by every year of waiting that what he did wasn't quite important enough. He didn't say he was glad to finally be recognized. He didn't say it was about time. He said the Hall of Fame now had a complete team. Because that's who Ray Guy was. Even at his own enshrinement, he was thinking about what his presence meant to the people around him. Ray Guy died on November 3, 2022. in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. He was 72 years old. The NCAA award for the best punter in college football is named after him. He is still the only pure punter in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Every year, the best punter in college football earns the Ray Guy Award. And every year, that award carries a name that should remind you what one player at one position can do to an entire football game. And there is something that connects the beginning of this story to the end. In 2011, a judge ordered Ray Guy to sell his Super Bowl rings. But in Canton, Ohio, enshrined forever in bronze, is the proof that those rings can be taken, and the memory of what you built can never be. 14 seasons, 3 Super Bowls, 7 Pro Bowls, 1,049 punts, 3 blocked in 14 years, a scoreboard 90 feet above the field in New Orleans, a one-handed catch in a Super Bowl, 6 consecutive Pro Bowl selections, the 75th anniversary team, the 100th anniversary team, the NFL's all-decade team of the 1970s, and one head coach who told his quarterback, just throw it away on 3rd down. The worst thing we have to do is let Ray Guy kick it. And that was pretty good. If this story gave you something you didn't have before, a name, a play, a moment, a piece of Raiders history that deserves to be remembered, then do one thing right now. Hit that like button. Not for the channel, for Ray Guy. Because every time you push that button, YouTube puts this story in front of someone who has never heard his name, someone who doesn't know what hang time means, someone who has never seen what it looks like when a punter wins a Super Bowl from inside a dome 90 feet above the field. This story deserves to be heard. Ray Guy spent 23 years waiting for the football world to recognize what he was. Don't make his story wait any longer. Like the video, share it with one person who loves Raiders football, or one person who has no idea what a punter can mean to a dynasty. And subscribe, because the Raiders of the 1970s and 1980s are full of stories exactly like this one. Stories that the history books barely touched. Stories that deserve a lot more than 23 years of waiting.